Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz. Here on a Thursday night, we are counting down to Essendon Port Adelaide. We're probably just about an hour to go. Teams are out, so there is a lot to talk about. My team, Draftstars, everything. So apologies for not being here last night. I think Benny actually filled in and did some Q&A while he was talking about his team. So I do appreciate that. As I said, I did have some car troubles and didn't kind of want to be bugged halfway through the stream with RSAV and everything else going on there. So it was a little bit frustrating, but I am here now. So it is all good. Thank you to all those people already jumping on. Do apologize to the other content creators, especially my mates over there at I've got absolutely gone blank. With Jeremy and Joe. I have gone absolutely blank. You guys will know. Centrebouts, of course, Centrebouts boys. Apologize to them and a couple other guys who I know do live shows at this time. I do try not to compete with you guys at the same time, but I thought, why not? Since I haven't had a chance to do my team, we'll come on live now. So I know some people do bounce between the two content creators. So here we go. As always, if you're new to the show, thank you for jumping on. Subscribe, like, all that. We are on Spotify, obviously YouTube, and get in touch with us via X, Supercoach Insider 100, or for me, Swiz26. I know there'll be a lot of questions. So we'll start off. I'll do the first one, the easy one, my tips for this weekend, and then we'll get into everything else. So I'm thinking the Power tonight by 25 points. Watched the Bombers last week. Geez, they were poor. The Doggies, Gold Coast, St Kilda Hawks, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Fremantle. Couple games there, which are probably pretty straightforward. Brisbane, Geelong, and Hawthorn GWS. Obviously, the two best games. And as I said the other day, it was such an easy solution. They had the time to do this 3 or 4 weeks ago. Should have moved the St Kilda Richmond game forward, or moved the Hawthorn GWS game to Sunday. But even though they could have gone Hawthorn GWS twilight into Brisbane Geelong, and because Brisbane Geelong are an hour later at the moment because of Queensland time, we could have possibly watched both games, which could be the prelim previews. It's just going to be annoying because a lot of us are going to be flicking between the channels. So a bit frustrating there, but that's the way it goes. All right, we will bounce into the teams because that is obviously an important part. And then I'll get into my team and my changes and all your questions. We'll probably get on to about 20 past 7, and then that gives me enough time to make some changes to my draft teams as I'm still trying to do that at the same time. But as always, it becomes a bit of a rush on Thursday night, and that's one of the other reasons why I try to record Wednesday and record Friday, because I'm usually trying to set up my 9 draft leagues as well, actually 10, including my fantasy keeper. It gets a bit full on, as you guys are probably in the exact same boat. All right, so let's have a look at these teams because I haven't looked at it yet. I was just scoffing down some dinner. So this is fresh for me as well. We already know what's happening with Essendon Port Adelaide, and that we are waiting just for the subs to be announced, which I'm sure will be soon. Carlton Bulldogs, the big one there is Camperoli and Lord being dropped. Found that out earlier today. And I was like, that's pretty disappointing, especially for Boyd and Evans coming in. Jones and O'Donnell for Duray, and Arthur Jones doesn't really affect us there. Camperoli is still at least the first emergency, so you just never know. Late out, things can happen on the day, but at least it wasn't completely dropped, so that's probably the one positive we can take out there. I think he is definitely a hold for those people who've been asking about him today when the news was starting to break. Just because of obviously that break even, we're already sort of looking at getting rid of players like Sardis, for example. Much different situation because obviously being dropped for Sardis, not dropped, he's been injured, then misses with the bye, and then looks like Parrish will probably come back, so then his role changes. Camperoli with a minus 44 break even just needs to get in at some point, and he's going to make some cash for us. So I think that's definitely one you guys out there, as well as me, can hold. Melbourne, Gold Coast at 120 at the G. Huge crowd expected for that. Melbourne have swung the axe big time. So May, Johnson, Billings, Melstrom, Langford are all in. Out Jefferson, Spargo, Woden, Turner, and Howes. The Suns back Mac Daddy, Mac Andrew, Jed, Walter, and Flanders. Out Ballard, Ainsworth, and Sexton. Probably the big ones there is Flanders. to see sort of how he goes. He's named in the forward line next to Ethan Reid. Ethan Reid, after was at 100 first week, a lot of people are kind of looking at to see how he backs up. So interesting there. Bailey Humphrey still named in the guts. So one to watch there, because obviously the Suns have only played one game. So their values have not changed yet. So there's a little bit happening there from a Gold Coast point of view. For the D's, Langford is on that bench with Kate Chandler. You wouldn't expect Chandler after last week to be the sub, so Langford potentially gets the sub, which would be great for us. Henderson, again, named on the half forward line. Lindsay on the wing. I think Lindsay is more of a must-have than Henderson, but we'll talk a bit more about that afterwards. The Saints and the Tigers, welcome to AFL. Toby Travalia, one for us to watch. Out goes Stocker and Clark, and then it's also Cooper Sharman. Banks and Fawcett out for the Tigers. Back is Tommy Lynch and Sonsi. Where is Sinclair named in the guts? So, yeah, I think there could be a field day for some of those Saints. I know we've already got a question about Hasty. There is Hasty, first emergency, so could be a late change. You just never know, but he is at least in there with the with a chance of getting back in. That's what we want to see, and that's what Michael has asked straight off. So do we keep Campo and Hasty as they both are emergencies? I have both still in my team at the moment. Hasty, at least only the one game, so I was looking at potentially moving him. He's the one probably more than either, but Camper definitely you keep. He's so close to getting that price rise, and the fact that they're both cheap. They're both sitting there. It's best 18 anyway. It's not going to affect. We kind of, in a perfect world, could you side swap to Henderson, who's going to go up right now? Yes. No, I've got no problem. And that was something I was thinking about. But at the same time, I'm like, is it really that worth it? Henderson, I probably would have preferred the move if, say, Foss down to make the 100K and then he gets the 100K on top of it. Trading out Hasty and Caporelli before they've done anything, when they look so close to getting in that side, I don't think that's something I really want to do. So, and as we said, as I just said, things happen on game day. There's no reason why he potentially doesn't come in. The couple worries there, especially for me, Liam McConnell named on that interchange. So is Max Hall, Garcia, who was the sub last time. So they've got some options there. Who could be sub. Trainer is also on that extended bench. Jack Roston, that fell second week. So, things happen. So Hawthorn Giants, Brewsty, and for Connor McDonald. The big one for the Giants is Briggs, and then there's Hogan and Stringer out for Brown. Grawinski, which some people had, and James Leake. So we did talk about that, about the fact that how close he could be for being dropped. Connor Stone is on the extended bench, so just watch that for people who are looking at him. But Briggsy back, he will get cheap over the next couple of weeks, so there's one to watch for us. Brisbane Geelong, huge stuff here. So the Lions, not so much. McKenna and McLaughlin out, in Kai Lohman and out in Charlie Cameron. In Bailey Smith, out Mark O'Connor. Tom Stewart is also named. Apparently they're both flying up, both of them massively in doubt. Geelong are the team who will throw a late in and out. They do it every game. The fact that they're actually taking the effort to fly these guys up, it means they're giving them every chance. But that emergency list is Mark O'Connell, Duncan, and Whitshire, especially O'Connor and Duncan. Potentially late moves there. O'Connor's usually the one that does some tagging work, so it's probably good there for Neil owners. Be interesting to kind of see how the Cats pull up there. Bailey Smith, I was really hoping he'd misses one more week, just because it would set my team up better. One of the trades I was kind of looking at doing was about Bailey Smith coming in next week. I've actually completely gone away from that now, so I'll talk about that in a moment. But yes, that is huge for us to watch that. And then Tom Stewart, we kind of want another poor game from him just to continue to get bit cheaper, but it doesn't affect us so much for now. It's just, I think owners, obviously you're going to hold, but non-owners, we want him sort of cheap. Connor O'Sullivan obviously holds his spot in the back line. Fine to downgrade, but still the problem is what happens when Colo comes back. I'm staying away from it for now, but he's definitely still an option. If I've got no problems people moving him in if they kind of want that defender, but just need a word of warning for that, depending obviously on any given week. Could he find himself out? Nevitt, where are you named, Mr. Nevitt? More importantly, Nevitt on the bench with Ted Closeley, came on really well, so you'd probably think him or Clark might be the sub again. Adelaide and the Kangaroos, Dowling and Curvis Murray. in extended bench, obviously. And then there for the Kangas, Hardiman, Marley, and Dawson. More importantly, extended benches. So those who might have Jacob Constani, extended bench. Fino Sutherland stays on there on the wing, so no issues there. From the Crows, Sid Draper again on that extended bench. So just want to watch out. And then the Eagles versus Freo, back is Matt Flynn, Bo Allen, Jack Williams, and Jack Graham. Out is Petrocelli. So that means Bailey Williams keeps his spot on that extended lineup. New guy, Isaac Dudley, is in for Fremantle, but he's on that extended bench. Liam Reedy, Warner, and Aish. So kind of having a look at how those lineups. The big one there, Bailey Williams is still named in the ruck for those who held Flynn. So you expect probably the case that Flynn misses out again. Bo Allen, it'll be interesting to see if he actually finds a way in. I haven't heard any announcements yet. Elijah Hewitt, you expect to keep. Clay Hall was really good last week, and so was Dua, who played the best game of his career. So you expect those three to still be in and probably all starting. So where they go with the sort of other guys, it's probably going to be maybe a marriage, maybe a long, and then sort of Flynn, Jack Williams, and maybe Bo Allen miss out there. So so that's what's happening with all these teams. I hope that kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what is going on, and nothing worse than a situation where we're trying to plan and we've got players who could be in and out, Geelong stuffing us around as always, and then the worst situation where these extended bench and there's players we're looking at. Quick word, like I was giving my NRL update on X the other day, I am currently sitting 382nd overall, so much better than my AFL, as we'll see in 1 second. But it's I'm kind of started to have to obviously do a lot more concentrating on that this week. So at least for overall for Supercoach, it went up. As I said, first, second weeks don't really matter so much because there's a lot of movement. So second week overall was for the round 5,000, scored 2,007 points. Couple disappointing scores. Gorn versus Cherry hurt me a lot, but went up 45,000 places as expected, and we will continue to fly back up, bit by bit. So that's it was an unfortunate start, but there were reasons for that. No, I don't want this better promotion. Everybody's probably getting annoyed from that completely. So before I get into your questions, let's talk about my team and what I've changed. So there is a couple of massive changes. So the big ones was the correction of Nathan O'Driscoll. So that had to happen. So Nathan O'Driscoll's come into my midfield for Finn or Sutherland. I was nearly thinking about a way of keeping Finn, but it just, I'm not liking the role so much. And I really wanted to start O'Driscoll in the first place. I just thought I'd start the more expensive guy. And Finn did kind of suck me in with that preseason match. And I thought O'Driscoll just kind of might have got stuck on the dead wing, but he's been playing way more midfield. Looks awesome. Just unfortunate, and I've had to use that trade compared to a lot of other people, but he is in, so be it. It's all good. Xavier Lindsay, I did talk about the other day, was fantastic. Looked really good. So I thought he was a must-in. If you're choosing between him and Henderson, straight away. He's playing wing. He's getting it 20 times. He's a great connection for the Ds and just sort of the way they play. And I did say about that preseason, and I talked about it again on Tuesday night with the boys, saying, I was big on him in that preseason, saying he was the better option than Langford. I thought he had the better role, and he just looks like the better footballer. For now, Langford will develop into a great footballer. But Lindsay straight away looks great. So he comes in, and that was for who else? Oh, for Sardis, obviously. Sardis flicked off, and as I said, because he does have that injury, and then the bye, and then further on that, it's potentially could be a sub affected. I don't want to hold him for 2 weeks and then potentially become sub even with his break even. It's just too much cash. It's got to sit in there when there's guys that I can turn him into. The big trade, guys. So kind of where Chris has just completely blown up his team and gone nuts. And I was talking to Scott Father about this today because obviously he traded out Chera, which I didn't agree with, but I understood the reasoning for it. So I didn't like the player he chose, but the reasoning. So I have gone, and if we scroll down to my forward line, there is a big player missing out of that, and that is playing tonight. Jason Horne-Francis is out of my side. Reasons for this. So the score, probably a little bit irrelevant. I had a couple of people messaging with me today saying, what if he hadn't given away those 5 free kicks and he hadn't given away the 50-meter penalty and hadn't given off a couple of goals? He could have easily scored 100. I've gone, yeah, but that's the thing, like easily scored 100 or maybe 100 against Richmond when the rest of the team was feasting. So that's a big thing. Now, I know he's been named in the midfield, but you look at that Sun side for the power side for tonight, and as I say that, the subs have come out. So Saad Ali is obviously the sub in his first game, and Tom Cochrane also in his first game. So a few people were saying Tom Cochrane comes in and he was going to be a tall. He's not a tall. He's an inside midfielder. I think the young fella's got Tourette's, so good luck to him. And you know, the challenges that he's going to face. But their other ends is Radigalea, who comes into their back line and ensures that. So I think he actually starting, or they're sending him forward because of that? No, they are starting him. Oh, there he's in the back line. Yes. So Radigalea goes back in the back line. The big in, because they've lost Lukosius due to injury, and even Ryan Burton, who can play that sort of mid-sized tall that, like, you know, Blake Hardwick and those sort of players play, are out. So they've brought in as their replacement tall Ivan Soldo. Ivan Soldo, been a Richmond player for a little while. Yeah, he's not the worst ruck forward, but realistically, if that's who you're relying on to play ruck, massive questions. And what I think happens tonight is in that third quarter, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens to the Bombers. Now, things like this sometimes don't pan out because you get injuries throughout the game. But Port would be thinking maybe Soldo gets a large run in the ruck in that third quarter, and then they can sub him out if they need to bring on the young fella who's going to give them a bit more midfield time and a bit more, you know, run across the ground. So that's how I think Port Adelaide will be thinking. And I'm sure the Bombers might even be thinking the same thing. Could they do the same thing with Draper and Bryan? But Draper at least is a handy forward. Sure, it's got the worst kicking action in footy. It's all about look at me and everything like that. But nonetheless, he gets the job done, you know, whether he kicks goals. So who cares? It's like some cricketers who, you know, you wonder how they bat sometimes and you go, oh, they get the job done. So whatever. But yeah, so I think that's how Port are probably thinking it. So realistically, their only forward is Georgiades. Now, I know Horne-Francis has been named in the midfield, but they've also named Willie Rioli in the midfield. So let's be honest here. Port, a lot of teams now name players in weird positions as well. But they've got young Mulrays, who is a midfielder, playing in his second game. They've got Rosie. They've also got Jackson Mead. We know Boak, Wines. They have a ton of midfielders. So who was the option that Port Adelaide may need to play forward? And I feel like it's going to be Horne-Francis. Now, he played mainly forward last week. The fact that they don't have a forward, Ollie Lords, you know, might still be a week or two away. And, you know, Lukosius is now out for whatever. They've lost Marshall for the year. I can't see a world where they're just going to be relying on here for Soldo as their second main tall. They need another player out there who can obviously lead and present. Now, in saying that, it doesn't mean Horne-Francis couldn't get on a hold of 5 or 6 goals. But I think this impacts his midfield time, especially when you've got other midfielders in there. So that's one of the reasons. Break even of 160. Now, I know a few people have messaged me today and saying, if he spuds up, I'm moving him next week, and that's fine. He's probably not going to lose like a tremendous lot of cash. Like if he even goes like 100, yeah, he probably loses 30K. If he stinks it up, and it was, say, a 60, I don't think he goes that badly. But if he went to 60, you know, all of a sudden he's looking at losing sort of 45K. And then the following week, it might be another 30, 40K. So I'm kind of banking on that, the fact that he's playing forward and he probably puts up like a 70 or an 80. And then it's who I've turned him into. So that's the big thing. So it's who you're trading him out. Now, a lot of people will message me about Horne-Francis when we were talking about this in the different content creator chats and whatever. And the fact is, what most people's response is like, well, what forward are you going to? Unless you don't have Rankin, there's no obvious forward to trade him to. I'm like 100%. But I'd moved Horne-Francis into my flex. And the moment I said that, every response was like, so which defender are you getting? And so if I scroll up here, after a lot of thought, and I don't mind Bailey Dell, I think the break even's fine. But after he's had 2 massive games, it's really hard to sort of think, is he going to continue up on that sort of trajectory and just keep going and doing what he, has been doing, like, without getting attention. The thing is, like, the Blues, Voss did tag short in that second half. I think Cottrell and a few of those other smalls might run through Bailey D at some point. And especially like last week, he was only on 30-odd, like halftime or just before halftime. Had a massive second half. Awesome. Played really well. And I really like the guy. But I think, yeah, there could be some harder matchups and some pressure coming to him. So that kind of leaves a few other options. Jordan Clark, I love his fixture. Absolutely love it. And I think he could get on a roll, so I'm not against that. But then it's the big dog. So if you don't have Zorko, you don't have Whitfield, or you don't have Sinclair. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm turning Jason Horne-Francis into Sinclair. So I'm like even worse kind of case scenario where I think Horne-Francis comes out and burns me a little bit and goes 110, 115 tonight. Well, I'm backing Sinclair to do the exact same anyway. So yes, it's cost me a trade, but I'm still backing the fact that I think Sinclair over the next period of time will outscore Horne-Francis. So that's part A for that. Part B also comes into, so we've got the bye rounds next week again, Essendon and Hawthorn, and then we go back to full sides. I'm hating these defender rookies. So at the moment, I've got 4 of them, 2 on the bench, 2 on the field. So Bice, no problems. And some people are going to bring him in next week. Makes sense. As a D6 person, awesome. Some are bringing in Cos, and I did think about it. So Connor O'Sullivan, that the worry still is what happens with Cole once he has a couple of bad games, all that sort of stuff. So I understand that. And Surf Cos just asked that about why don't you have Cos? So that was the option I could have just gone to. I could have gone a rookie down to Cos. I think he does make some cash. I am still worried about what sort of happens to him in a couple of weeks. Brisbane's absolutely flooding with rain at the moment as well. So does that affect, his strength is intercept marks. So is that going to be a harder game for him to sort of play out and not have the impact like he did under the roof last week? So I am sort of conscious about those sort of things. Now, no, that doesn't say he won't go well. He could, but I'm sort of playing the numbers there thinking really wet weather. It's going to be a tough game against the Lions. Harder for some of these rookie guys to possibly get involved. Feel like he comes back to a 50 or less. And then sort of then what happens kind of going from there. So I don't think he's a terrible pick, but at the same time, I do have a few concerns around that. But outside of that, like O'Connell for St Kilda could be the sub this week. Zach Reid, trainer, they've probably got one more week. Hopefully they can turn their scoring around, but pretty well I want to move one of them out. And so those guys will go, and it'll be a case of O'Connell or a trainer or a Reid or one of them will get kicked out of my side. At the moment, then in flex position, I've got Jaden Short. Now, Jaden Short, he's fine for now. Hopefully he can boost the score, especially against St Kilda. If not, he's the one that I'll side swap to, say, a Stewart, for example. There's other guys. Mills will be back soon. Even find the money to get him up to one of these other premium defenders, because in a perfect world, I kind of want 5 really good defenders and one defensive rookie, which will be Bice on field. So when we start playing best 22, and that takes care of that. The forward rookies, I've got more confidence in them scoring. So where Trainer and Reid are putting up 20s and 30s and whatever. Davidson last week put a 72. I think he can go at least 60. Hewitt, looked pretty good in that role. Even Kako is going to boost the score at some point, and if I can kind of loophole around that, and realistically, the flex is then covering D6 anyway if it falls up. So, but I've got more confidence in there. Sam Powell-Pepper's there for now, and that's a few people asking about that when I was sending teams today. But I'm backing, like in a perfect world, I really hope Bailey Smith's are laid out. But if it isn't, no problems. I'm backing Sam Powell-Pepper. Hopefully, can have a couple of good games against Essendon and St Kilda, and boost him up to about 250. K would be perfect, and then I'll move him on. Even next week, even if he gets to say 205, I think he needs 250 to get to 205K. So if he can snag another goal on top of that and get to 70 and get to 215K, well, he's only 180K to get to Bailey Smith then. And then I could potentially have 4 of those guys and 5 defenders. Then I think that's a better makeup of side than it would be if I had Horne-Francis there and the extra defender rookie, because I'm hating these defender rookies. The other thing about Sinclair as well, it's the stretch of games. So Rainman, I know Nathan from Supercoach Hub, they've all been putting up different things with Sinclair. So his 3-game average against his upcoming opponents. So Richmond this week, 116, Port 122, GWS 120, Bulldogs 110, Brisbane 137, Freo 109, Carlton 105, West Coast 119. So that's his upcoming opponents. He's also, he's like some of his scores at Marvel from last year were just off the roof, through the roof. And usually the roof's closed there too. So we saw what he did last week under the roof against Geelong, where he went the 140. And then, last year's he had a 147, a 143, a 110, a 140, a 142, a 123, a 111. And his draw coming up, so he's obviously got the Tigers, then a couple of games in Adelaide, then plays three in a row against at Marvel again. And then through the bye periods, he's got 3 out of 4 weeks in Marvel as well. So loves it there. So I'm like, he is one of the premium guys. He's definitely going to be top 6 defender, if not top 3. Horne-Francis, not that he can't be top 1 still defend forward or top 2, top 3, whatever, but I feel like the forwards are capped outside of McRae, probably even Daniel. So I think probably Horne-Francis maybe 100 to 105. I feel like Sinclair, there's a world where it's 110 to 115, especially in those Marvel games. And I'm backing Horne-Francis just to get cheaper. I'll just pick him back up, hopefully at 450. So that is the thinking around that. And then, I'd rather boost those with those forward rookies. So that's how I'm going. Surf Coast, to answer your questions, that's 5 now. So I use my first boost. I'd end up using 2 last week and 3. The difference is, and we're chatting about this in all our content creator chats, I think some of us still get in our head sometimes that we have only 20 or 30 trades. And I know it's like obviously Scott and Chris is another one, and quite a few out there get really aggressive. But the fact we do have 40 trades these days, so it's nothing. There's nothing wrong with kind of using a few to kind of get your team right and sending your team at this time. If you can hold them, even better. Like just it'll help potentially later on if there's injuries and whatever. But I find that a lot of people were a lot more aggressive, and that's how you kind of climb the rankings. And then you sort yourself out because you're obviously not using as much trades as the second half of the year comes on, especially after that bye period. So that is that. I will answer some of these questions coming through. So my team, as I said, there is some risk. Horne-Francis, as I said, most likely tries to punish me and comes out 110, 120 tonight. But even so, I'm backing Sinclair to go the same. So I'm not feeling the hurt there. But if Horne-Francis only puts up a 70 or an 80 or something like that, and Sinclair goes big again, well then I'm already ahead of the game there from a points perspective, and we'll go from there. So that is the reasoning why. The other ones I was looking at, like Gawn to Cherry, Harry Mackay coming out today, personal reasons and extended leave. Pittonet could be as early as 2 weeks away, so Carlton could be trying to rush him back. So there could be a world where DeConning may have that impact, which is something I'm just watching. So I did think about Gawn to Cherry before I did obviously the Horne-Francis move, but I'm like, probably might need Gawn anyway, as much as he's obviously struggling with personal reasons. I think the big fella back comes back. He's a proud man and he really rebounds even against a great ruck like Witt. So I'm willing to give him another week to see how he obviously goes. And then in a perfect world, it's DeConning, or even the flex becomes Cherry. Sort of through this period, so that was always the plan there. And okay, let's go in here. Let's go. Thanks, mate. Let's go, super coaches. Yes, thank you. I am in the house. Thank you, Michael. Okay, is it worth using a boost from Hasty to Henderson? Second boost gone. Like you can, and I feel like it's more better if you've only used the one, but I haven't used one yet. But as I said, being aggressive this time of the year to set up your teams, no problems as well. You don't want to be in a situation where some people got caught out last year and they still had a boost left, which was worthless. So no problems using a couple in this period. It's just, it makes it harder if you wanted to do it next week. Unless there's some major injuries, you're probably not needing it as much for next week. It's sort of, these are the 2 periods where we do need to do stuff. So as I said, Henderson, the other day I was explaining this. I think Henderson's fine playing that Neil Bullen role. He's going to link up well. No problems with it. But at the same time, he's needed that goal to kind of boost his score that little bit. I think there could be a poor game coming at some point, but I still think he makes like cash. I prefer it if it was Foz, and that's my bigger thing, because you already get the 100K to use elsewhere, and he probably makes a lot more money than what Foz is going to make in the short term. I thought about keeping Foz if there was a way of doing it, but what if it's only another 40 game this week and he makes only sort of 10K, and isn't it better kind of just go like, Henderson, you're probably going to get 50K off straight away. So it's going to be a massive slow burn. I do know Foz obviously is going to pick up, dual position, but then so is Henderson anyway. So it's a much of a muchness. Do we keep? I did sit there and say we do keep them. Lethal, nothing worse than planning trades for Cats players. absolutely awful. And there's another part of me that may even come to next week. If Bailey Smith does play this week, I had a few people message me about this today and say, is it even worth getting him in? And this is going to be the problem. If this is like, he's going to be hampered, he could be subbed off early. Even that first week where he went massive, the plan was not for him to play that much. It was just that he was on, he was feeling good, and then they had issues with Stewart. They had other things going on, so they let him go. But then he did admit like he had bleeding in the calf. So he probably should have come off, but he was just happy to run it out because he's like, well, I'm going to miss next week anyway, so it's not going to be any worse. So it could be a week-by-week thing for Smith at the moment, which does have me worried. And he could very much come out and dominate this game and then misses the following week. So there are some worries about that. Stewart, as we know, JD, so I obviously caught up with him. I put up the photo of all us content creators out and about. We are planning and try to do a couple of things, just a mass invite later as the season goes on. If you guys want to come and join us at the footy and other things, and there'll be more details about that as well. But I was talking to JD and he was going to bring Stewart in, and I told him, mate, don't get Stewart because he's going to get an injury early in the game and you're going to be kicking yourself. And JD, like Sunday, was messaging me. He's like, oh my God, Swiz, you're all over that. And I was like, yeah, mate, it just happens all the time. It just Stewart's an unreal player, but he always seems to have one of those early injuries. Yes, I did not answer this the other day, Michael, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come on, because I know people are asking this. Thoughts on Sin? I like it. We liked it in preseason. He has the role, him and Farrell, and they've got Bergman. They've got options running back. The fact that he is cheap, there was the worry about kind of more his kicking and everything, but I kind of like him more than Cos. I know he's obviously an extra, 80K, but at least he's got better job security. And if he sort of dominates, especially the state Kilda game, that is always the gold standard when it comes to having your defenders. I actually quite like that move, especially when people are kind of getting SDK as their 6, who I still like. But Sin at that sort of cheaper price, if that money can do elsewhere for you, that's fine. I've seen sort of teams with like SDK at 6 and at 5, but it's more about trying to get rid of some of these rookies off field, and that's where the problem comes in. So yes, that's good. And the Murphy Reed, that is why I faded him. That's why I didn't start him. Like, awesome that first game for 6 minutes. Last week was much better, but as you said, all these players are about to come back in, and I think that's bad for him. Where at least Driscoll just moves back onto the wing. Hello, mate. Great. Who's this? Just Cos. Oh, yes. Great. I love the profile picture. Great advice you gave me last week, trading Dell. Yep, no problems. That's what I'm here for. As I always say, this might be bad for Sinclair and the Horn Francis thing. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Because, geez, I seem to give good advice, but I don't take my own advice sometimes. That's always a problem. Hey, Kev, thanks for jumping on as always, mate. I was trading O'Sullivan to Henderson this week because I didn't have a lot going on, and that gives me some cash. Would you suggest bringing back O'Sullivan and ditching Camperoli instead? No, I think you keep Camper. I get the idea that Finn's playing, so potentially, but the break even is better. And it, obviously has you some cash there that can give you options for next week. I know somebody's done a couple trades this week and messaged me this morning about banking $400,000 for their trades for next week, and they're literally going to go bang and get. I think the 2 trades they sent me, they can get in Bailey Smith and Whitfield. I was like, oh, that's awesome. So there's like nothing wrong with keeping cash if you've got a plan for it. It does obviously give you options. I probably was shocked to hear that much cash, but there was obviously reasons. Michael, hopefully JHF can do what Keys did. I always say gamble responsibly, especially as I get into the Draftstars stuff. But there's some guys I was with last week. They got on Ben Keys. He hit 4 goals last week. It was paying about 40-1, so flying. Sutherland, Sardis, and Hasty for Mark, to Lindsay, Henderson, and Chera in. It's funny because Scott messaged me today. It's like, no, you've got to trade Chera. And I'm like, why? He's got a break even of 32? It's like, why the hell am I going to do that? I did cop a bit of slack from us guys about the trading Chera out, but I got what he was trying to do about getting those midfield rookies on field. So Sutherland, yes. Lindsay, yes, no problems in the world. The only recommendation I'd say outside of Chera would obviously be Finn Callahan. If you don't have the money to go higher. The one I was recommending to people today, I think on X and a couple other places, if you've got the money to go get Noah Anderson, go get him. Captain of the Suns is flying. Great draw coming up. Surf course. Am I worried about my bench? Yes and no. If there weren't rookies on the horizon, then I would be more worried. And this is the whole thing about why I'm fading Henderson as well. So there are some players coming up above. Now, I've obviously already gone early on the getting Bice, who I think looked awesome. There was obviously a lot of media about him this week. But if we kind of have a look at guys who have only played the one game and could potentially be looking at a, coming on the bubble in the following week. So what did I have here earlier? We had round 4 price change. So Joel Hamling currently will be on the bubble next week. So he is actually listed as a forward for Sydney, but as we know, he plays defence. Has gone 76 and 69 as 159K. Like his job security a lot more. And, it's obviously that mature age guy who's going to get forward defender status. So that could come in handy. Clay Hall is an interesting one to watch. Hopefully, I expect him to keep his spot after such a good game. So one that we get to have another look at, 129,000, scored the 88 last week. Ethan Reid is the one that everyone's quite keen on. More expensive, 169. I'm not as much because, obviously that forward and, they've got guys who are going to come back, but can't ignore the fact that he did score 100 and they do have quite a good soft draw as well. So it needs to take into account. Ted Closey, again, Geelong, who knows how they can set up and sub and everything like that, but he was super impressive when he came on. So we do have that option as well. And then we've got the slightly more expensive for that mid-pricer in Bailey Humphrey at 270K. So he is one that I'm kind of looking at and how that could fit into my side. If he goes well, he's playing midfield. If he has that role again, and it doesn't even have to be 104 like he scored against the Eagles, but if it's 80 plus and he's playing bulk CBAs, I am super keen on Bailey Humphrey. So there are options there already, and that's outside of the guys who are debuting today. Obviously, a couple of them are sub, so that affects stuff. But like Christian Morels, I know I probably said that wrong, but so there's a couple other guys who are going to start making their debuts. We obviously we're expecting Bo Ellen at some point, so there's going to be options around that we can have a look at. So I think, as long as Camporelli comes to get in a couple of games, and once I can get rid of one of those defender rookies for one of these guys, it'll probably be a bit side swappy, but I think that'll be fine. And realistically, still Kako there, who I can Stone should play this week again. I think they're fine. So it's really only a couple of those guys in the midfield. And I was talking to Chris about this, about having, because I think he had all his premium rookies on field. And I was like, well, I've still got Nevitt on the bench too. So I'm kind of comfortable with that. I think a few people are playing kind of Henderson. And I've actually seen Henderson on some people's field. So, I think a few people are a bit light on there anyway. And the fact that, it's probably just the defense, which is the worry. But that's where Cos may be an option. But as I said, there are some worries there. All right, Gibbo. Yes, I'm back in the horny Frankfurt tonight. It's going to be a hard watch for me, but geez, I hope he goes poor. But for you guys, I hope he goes well. No hate there. Trading Dale Clark. I'm actually on Clark this week. So I thought Bailey D last week. I think he gets some attention this week from the way Vossel set up. He's still a great pick, and I think they're both that mix for the top 6. So the top 6 clearly does seem to be, even though Shees is obviously a few pull games from his disposal on the weekend. I think he had 8 clangers. He's still getting it 25 to 30 times. So he's still going to be in the top 4. Whitfield's a superstar. Sinclair's a superstar. Zorko's a superstar. So you got those guys, and then it's like Bailey D and Clark, and then you're going to have some other guys challenging then. I love Clark's draw coming up. So obviously West Coast this week, Bulldogs at home, Richmond in the Barossa. I know they've got it might be Melbourne, St Kilda, Adelaide. They're all in the mix there. I think the Adelaide game's at home, so obviously the wider spaces where the Melbourne game, I'm just pretty sure at the G, and then St Kilda would be under the roof at Marvel. So for a defender, that's a pretty good draw. So I really like Clark, and I know, a few people have jumped on him, and I was considering it instead of Sinclair, but Sinclair's just he's guaranteed, playing in that role. He's not copying any attention. Playing the Tigers this week, he's going to smash us. Callaghan must have no, but if you need somebody in that price range, then more than fine. He's going to go up money. He's still going to probably go around that 100, 105. I just don't think he's going to go to the same heights if Tom Green wasn't there. And there was always the potential that he might get some attention more than what Whitfield will in the odd game. But like, he's going to be a great player. He's going to, I think Chris said, I can see him being in that sort of top 15. And I think that's the same. Maybe the top 15, top 20. Like, I did play around with the idea of going Neil down to Callaghan to get 200K. And I was like, that's probably a 15-point difference. But Neil's draw coming up in the next few weeks, there's no way I could bypass that just because he is a captaincy option. And talking about vice captain and captain options, some people are going Rosie tonight. Don't mind that. TDK tomorrow night is an obvious one. I really like McRae. I think McRae's got to be one of them, or Sinclair. If you've got a Saints player, as I say every week, whoever's playing the Tigers, and it showed last week, Rosie just floated in and did his thing and dominated. So yeah, you got to either have McRae as your vice captain or captain. I think that's an obvious one. And then it's how you want to go. So it's a TDK into a McRae, or do you want to go like myself, McRae into Sarong? And that's why I've set it up. And you'll see my back line there where the Roberts is on field and Reed's got the emergency, just so because I'm already setting up the fact that the defender's on there and I can put the captaincy on Roberts if McRae goes as well as I hope he goes, which I probably expect. Was that Brad or was that Brad Cool? Sorry. Do I go Patton to Bailey D, or I want Sinclair, but the only way to do is trading Lawler? I'm torn. If it makes you have to trade an extra trade, maybe not. But I actually said I'm not the hugest fan of Lawler because of just the role that he's got to play in at Richmond. He's fine. He'll get forward status, which will be good enough. I'm just actually seeing what Sammy Lawler was expected to go, like the break even of 1. So it's the 39 really does hurt his cash gen. So even if he goes a poor score this week, it's only 20K. Obviously, you're hoping he goes a lot more. So I don't mind that so much because it depends, obviously, what the rookie you're going down to as well. But if it's, let's just say it's Henderson, at least we know Henderson. Obviously, again, it's like the Foss situation. You get in the 100K straight away. Some of that money is obviously going towards Sinclair. Henderson's going to make more money in at least the short term than Lawler, and he's still going to get forward status anyway. So, yeah, I'd probably actually lean towards Sinclair. Yeah, well, and Surf Cost is going the other way, but again, I just think he's playing too much forward. It is a real worry, obviously, playing forward up for Richmond. James, I want to get rid of Hasty because he's a dead rookie. And then next week, Pryor and Foss to Baz and Bias. Yeah, no problems. And Bias will be obviously a very a big trade for next week. And this is the big question. So, of course, as I said, depends who he's swapping Law for. All right. Worth trading Jason Horne-Francis for Callaghan or Fraser. So Callaghan, I did play around with the idea. The only issue was it didn't fix my defense. But if you're got less premium midfielders than what I do, I've actually got no problems with it because it obviously makes you 100K straight away. The only issue comes in, I always think you kind of want the premiums from your defenders and your forward line. So like, let's just say Jason Horne-Francis probably averages, say, 100. Callaghan goes 105. You'd rather at least you'd want Callaghan to sort of go at least 110, 115 to make it more worthwhile. So it also depends what that 100K goes for and does for you. So I probably don't mind the Fraser one, but I'd rather like Horne-Francis, the side swap, Bailey D, or even the Sire Wangan and Lira, even though I think he's capped, try to get up to Geordie Clark, try to get up to one of those premium guys. I think that's better. Fraser, the break even is awesome. He's getting that midfield time. What happens when those Bulldogs guys come back? And the issue was last week, he was on track for about a 75. He kicked that goal to put the scores level. So his score got inflated. So realistically, he's probably looking at a 75 to 80. Still would have been sold enough, but I would have been in the same realm of sort of SDK last week. And I think long-term SDK obviously has the better role. So I'm not as hot on Fraser. I did make the call on that last week. So I'd rather, if you're not going Callaghan, try to get up to a better defender. You guys are still talking, which I love. It's great when you guys actually start getting in here. There is a ton of questions. If you can't get Lindsay in this week, do you think it's fine to buy him? I think you kind of start missing the boat because, that's sort of 50K gone. Realistically, from a rookie, you want at least 100. He might only make 120K, whatever. So, I think it's Lindsay's this week or not. you start to kind of price yourself out a little bit. Yeah, it's annoying, especially because, you can't use him, obviously, as a loophole. I would have loved it. The obvious one tonight is Sardis plays, and then if Camper doesn't play, awesome, you freaking use him as a loophole. But both of them just so annoying. Just, frustrating. Hey, mate, trade Sardis or Foz. You've got to trade Sardis because at least Foz is playing. So I did, as I said earlier, I was looking at ways for Foz to how can I kind of get him, keep him, but like he's probably going to be a slow burn, but yeah, that's sort of where it sits there. I will go also put up this Draftstars at the same time while I'm talking and answering your questions, because obviously mindful of the games and everything else that I'm doing. I always like to talk a little bit of Draftstars. The big one tonight, guys, 4 Draftstars for those who play, and as I said, always gamble responsibly. For those who just want to play the free round, AFL play multi-entries. You can actually enter up to 50 times. So I've obviously put 3 teams in there, but you can, they've actually just opened it up for as many sort of free entries, so you can play around with this if you've never played before. And you just want to play a free game which is fantasy scoring, get on. So my advice is, I like Nick Bryan. There's so many different rucks with Draftstars tonight. So I'm very much on the get the cheapest ruck, which will be probably Bryan. Unless you think he's going to be subbed out and maybe Draper, but I'm like, I don't want to spend too much money on that, so I'm gone him. There's some great options in defense, especially for the power. So Logan Evans is playing back. Josh Sin, I really like Sin. I like Evans. If you can get the money up to Bergman, there's Farrell there who's absolutely flying as well. So they're all fine options. Like, you just look at what Evans kind of did last week in that role. He got the 108. Bergman, they all feasted on Richmond last week, and they're probably going to feast on Essendon's backline as well. Essendon just don't have value in here, especially with Sard being the sub. So Port have so much value. You'll see my team is very Port Adelaide based. Go to the forward line again. The big one there, Travis Boak is a forward in this. Gone 81 and 115. He's just a lock at 11,840. Probably from the only Essendon thing, like, you got Nick Martin, who's good, but he's overpriced at 15,000. You got Sam Draper. It's not a bad call for the ruck, but sharing ruck, it's always an issue, but I don't mind that so much. Willie Rioli is one I really do like. I've got him loopholed him in quite a lot of drafts. He was awesome last week. So I think he'll get up the ground and get involved. A lot of these other guys I'm just not in love with. Maybe Radigalia, because he is so cheap and he could take some, obviously intercept marks. Even Burn Jones, but probably don't like it as much from a fantasy point of view. So you do have those options there. So I'll go Willie. The obvious one for the Bombers is Jai Caldwell. He's an absolute superstar in that midfield. So is Merritt. But so either one of those guys is the obvious option. Then for Port, you've got guys like Wines, who's just consistent, throw up 100. You go a little bit cheaper down to a William Drew, who first week wasn't so good, but they got absolutely pantsed, and I don't think that's going to happen again today. You can even go cheaper. The fact that Moraes is playing, went to 60 last week. You can go and get him. Mead's another one in that midfield who's a mid forward. So if I kind of go Caldwell, what does that leave us with? It leaves me with as much as 17,000, which means I could actually even go get Merritt and potentially with 1,500 upgrade someone. So I could put William Drew. I'm just short of Wines, which is really annoying. I wonder if there's anybody. Oh, that's who. I'll just go him down to Connor Rosie. With that, Connor Rosie, who's absolutely smashing it. So yeah, that's for the team. Boak, Willie, Rioli, Moraes, Caldwell. I went the 2 Bombers. Sorry, Essendon. Wines, Rosie, Sin, Evans, and Bryan. So I'm pretty actually happy with that sort of from a Draftstars point of view for those people who do follow that. So you can actually play around with that. Okay, we'll go some extra questions and then we will wind this up so I can get through some of my other stuff as well. All right, so where are we going here? I apologize where we're up to. Foss. Oh, here we go. Cool. Keen on getting Saligo. I don't think he's going to be close enough to the top, but I think he's a very good player, improving. He's one of those guys here, if you started, congratulations, because I think, you've done very well with a player who's, performing as well as he is. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to, I don't kind of like trading into those sort of guys. That's just my worry about that. But, he is averaging 111. The break even's not too bad at 30. But, you've got a couple other guys, especially when you've got like Callahan in that position. And they've got so many good midfielders around there. I think Saligo is a little bit capped, but he looks good. And if you started him, well done to you. Will Day worth holding? No, you can move him. He's going to get tagged this week by Bedford, and then he's going to buy. Move him out. Surf Coast Leak, Sardis and Hasty out. Cos, Henderson, Lindsay in. Yep, thumbs up. And I actually thought about doing that, just the 3 and the 3, and try to maybe get that cash gen for Henderson. That's what I was thinking originally. But yeah, obviously Horn Francis and Sinclair for the points part of the thing. But I don't mind it from the cash cow issue as well. So that's good. Fraser named on ball, was going to grab Whitfield, but has got my attentions. The problem is how far Bont's away. Treloar is out longer, so that does make it bigger. But the score was inflated because of that late goal. There's no reason why he couldn't at least continue with a couple of hundreds until, say, Bont comes back. But there is that sort of, I think it's capped to a certain point. It's a short-term play. So I am kind of worried a little bit. And it's not like they have the easiest draw. I would have preferred a couple of other guys. So yeah, that's something to think about. I'm not as hot on the Fraser, but I'm not saying don't do it either. It's probably something I could have done from a short-term point of view, and what's that, save me 200k, and I can just sort of go there. But you just kind of look at the projections. Like, he's going 100, 109. They're projecting an 80. Cooley goes up 35k. If he goes 100, yes, you probably get the benefits there and get that sort of 45 and then maybe 20k the following week. But you're probably going to get a guy who gets the 420, 430, 440. Just sort of, it's kind of no man's land. I'm an Eagles supporter. I hope the Eagles persist with Hall 100%. I hope they persist with most of the guys that played last week. That was such an impressive performance by them. I hope they keep it up for their fans. Ryan Swiz, who would you like in Draftstars Legend? Yep, so I've gone through that, so I hope that helps. The Port midfielders, they're 100% value, and as I said, Boak in the back line, and then especially if you're playing multiple ones, spread it between Farrell, Sin, Evans, Bergman. Maybe if you've got a bomber, I can't stand having Ridley because I just know he's going to get injured. Even McGrath, geez, I just don't like. There's not much I like about the Bombers from a value point of view. They're just all at hot top price. I'm in top 1K, so rookie collection. Yep, that makes sense. Yep, I get that. I'm further behind, so I'm chasing the points already. So if your backline is fine, yes, get the rookie sorted. Need guys like Trainer and Reid off ground. That's what I said. And that's Chris and I were talking big today about this. I think some people forget that, the flex can cover, but I kind of want the flex to cover I've always from the start, he's meant to cover my F5, F6. So in a perfect world, I want to loophole my F7 and my F6. And so they have my F8 as non-playing, because one of them will end up being non-playing. So I can loophole those two guys. And then pretty well my flex is taking the worst score out of F5 and D6. And that's my perfect world for my team. I really like the fact that Surf Coast is so involved with this at the moment. So I've got a backline now. She's Zorko, Roberts, Short, Bice. Yep. And Short's fine to hold. I feel like he's got a score in him. So I'm kind of just want to hold him until something else opens up, like a Stewart or a Mills, or he gets that score or gets a couple of weeks where he gets the boost. Like the first week, until he got tagged, he was going 120. So he's fine. He got probably other issues. This one, mate, flip a coin. I personally slightly like Whitfield. Slightly like Sinclair more because I think Whitfield gets tagged, but Whitfield doesn't gets to at least play against St Kilda, which is usually good for defence. So either way, mate, I feel like we're going to want both. So whatever probably suits your buys right now, or either way, mate, it's a much of a muchness, really. Whitfield, Sinclair, Zorko, Odell to bring in this week. So especially from the first three, if you can get the three guys who probably going to be the top three guys, either way, Zorko has probably even the best draw out of the lot of them. I already had him, so it's a no-brainer. Those who didn't have Zorko were already getting him, so that makes sense there. I want to keep going here for a second. So how many questions we have? We will try to get through these guys as quickly. Mike, we're thinking of trading Foss to Lindsay, even though have Hasty in camp. Then if Clay Hall looks good, yes. And then you got Travaglio and these other guys who are coming through. So yes, 100%. as I was saying earlier. Would you trade Tom Stewart to Sinclair or Whitfield, knowing Stewart could be a laid out, especially if he's going to be a laid out? And the fact that Stewart is playing the same time as Whitfield, you can actually wait on that. And the moment he is named out, if he is, you can side swap to Whitfield. That's an easy play. So I actually really like that. As much as I know you're saying it's quite sideways, Stewart's going to obviously drop money, and Whitfield is he's going to be top 3, top 4, top 6 at least. So it's good. Scotty, Swiz doing something crazy trading Stewart, Perryman, and Horne-Francis. No, I actually don't think it's that crazy. Chris has probably got me on maybe talking to Scott too much about these sort of ideas. But yeah, no, good for Lindsay. I'm a rookie +2 of Zorko, Whitfield, or Sinclair. And you need 2, and doesn't really matter which 2. They're probably all going the same or similar. So that's easy. Pete, Hooterfield, pick 2, SPP. If you can loophole SPP, even better. But I'd go SPP and Davidson. Andrew, hey, Swiz, what are your thoughts on moving Neil? I get the idea, and this was suggested to me by a few people. So I completely understand it. However, I think the draw is just too good. I kind of don't really want to do it with the draw as good as it is. So for me, it's a no. But I do get why people are thinking about it. I'm just going to obviously make sure of my moves there. All right. Backline. Yep, cool. You guys are still talking about that. I'll skip through your great chat here. I don't really like cheese. Hey, mate. What's your thoughts on Jason Horne-Francis out to get 2 premium defenders to go? Yes, and that's what I'm doing. You might have got on there late, but yes, especially if it's Sinclair, Whitfield, Zorko. Yeah. I think that's the move. This is the aggressive move that I think can pay off. Really hope for us it pays off. So of course, just went Sin last second. Nothing better than a last second move. VC Rosie into either TDK or English. I think McRae needs to be in something. So Rosie, no problems into McRae, or if you want to go TDK into McRae. But either way, Rosie's on fire. Obviously, great. That's probably the rumor that Bond is going to be back for the Marvel after the gather round. So you've probably got Frazier. What's that? 4 weeks of him. So that it needs to be an account. Yeah, mate. No, that's right. Having an app. Yeah, mate. I know the feeling. Gibbo, great photo in the thumbnail. Yeah, thanks, mate. That was just hope people like the thumbnail today. Matt, who would you trade out of Gorn? Would you trade out Gorn in the flex and use the money elsewhere? Depends on who you're getting. And if you can split it and kind of get so this is the move I don't mind if you say it's like one of those premium defenders and it helps you upgrade to someone else. I can live with that a lot more. It does depend what you're doing with that money. First boost makes sense. Short, Foss, Flynn out, Henderson, Cos, Callahan, and save money. Cool. Good. You're all over this, Jono. Love it. And good luck. And I think that leaves us with 2 minutes spare. Thank you to everybody that jumped on. Good luck. Happy super coaching. I will try to get back on for tomorrow night as we always do the last minute stuff, and it should be good. Looking forward to the game tonight. Catch you soon. Bye.